Okay, so let's say we have 2 points. Point here, and we're going to label it x sub 1 and y sub 1. So you're in a Cartesian coordinate system. And then here's another point. We're going to call it x sub 2 and y sub 2. And we've had such things before. But then because we have these 2 points, we can draw a line between those 2 points. And that's called a line segment. It's ended at 2 points there. And we want to find the distance, we're going to call it d, the distance between those 2 points. So picture them on, a Cartesian coordinate system. I can draw a coordinate system, but it might kind of get in the way. I'll try to do it in green. It doesn't matter where the points are. This is going to work for any 2 points. Well, because I have this, I could get from one point to the other point, if I were to go this distance here and then go up this distance here. That would make a triangle, a right triangle. So think of it, here you are at one point and your friend's at another point, but you can only walk along the blocks, So you're in the city, and so you're going to walk so many city blocks to the east and then so many city blocks north to get to your friend. Okay, so think of it that way. Well, how do you find then this distance between here and here? Well, that's the difference between x sub 2 and x sub 1. It's that difference. So that would be that distance right there. Think about this point being, well, I won't do that. That'll be confusing to you. But think about taking the difference between this point, and right here is your x sub 2, right? Like that's where you're marked off. So this is x sub 2, comma, whatever. That would be that distance. Now we can do the similar thing here for this distance here, which is going to be y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Okay? So that would be that distance for that length of the triangle. The coordinates for that point that I said, well, that'll be confusing, but I put them in x sub 2 comma y sub 1, right? All right. So if you think about it a little bit, think about your triangle. How many blocks are you going this way to get to your friend? Well, it's the difference between x sub 2 and x sub 1. And how many blocks are you going north to get to your friend? Well, it's the difference between y sub 2 and y sub 1. Okay? All right. So we have lengths for this triangle, and now we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared, whoops, it's supposed to be a b, b squared equals c squared. Well, in our example, then, we have x sub 2 minus x sub 1, and we're going to square it, plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1, and we're going to square it, and that's going to equal the distance squared. Now to find the distance, remember we're trying to find the distance, we're going to take the square root of both sides. Now you might say, oh, you've got to put the plus or minus in, but the thing is the distance is only going to be a positive length. We're not going to have a negative distance. So distance is equal to the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1, quantity squared, plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that quantity squared. That is the distance formula, and it comes from the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so there's the formula. Try to learn that, I guess, or put it on your note sheet. And now we're going to show you an example for using that. So it says find the distance between -1 and 4 and 3, -2. Express the answer in simplified radical form and then round to 2 decimal places. So we're going to pull out the distance formula that we just created. So here it is. You can make that a little bit longer. Okay, and then like we've done in the past with like the slope formula, consider this the first point and this the second point. And then we can just plug in the numbers. So we're going to have x sub 2 is 3 minus x sub 1, which is -1. We're going to have to square that. And then y sub 2, which is -2, minus y sub 1. And we're going to have to square that. So we get the square root of, this is going to be 4 squared plus -6 squared. And then that's going to be 16 plus 36. All right. Running out of room here. And then that's going to be the square root of what, 52? Now, they want it simplified in radical form. So that's 4 times 13, or 2 times the square root of 13. So that's one answer right there. But they also wanted it rounded off to 2 decimal places. So if I round it off before I simplify it, it's probably easier to do it that way. I'll just take the square root of 52 and see what I get. 2 decimal places, I get 7.21. Okay, so that's how you use the distance formula, and there you go.